Hey, and welcome to Show Me Some Television, the segment where, thanks to Roger's Show Me service, which I'm currently getting for free, thank you Rogers, I'm getting to binge watch some television. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about Under the Dome Season 1. Now, if you don't know what Under the Dome is, it's a series that is based off of a book by Stephen King. So Stephen King's obviously got writing credits over the entire series. And it premiered, I think it was CBS, whatever channels you got, depending on where you are in the world, that picked it up, obviously. And that was in June, and near the end of June 2013. So it was a summer show. It tells the story of this sort of like small town America. I think it's called Chester's Mill, where out of nowhere this giant transparent like force field type dome thing cuts them off from the rest of the world. So they have no internet, they have no mobile phones. Essentially, whatever's in the dome is what they got to work with, and it's the citizens essentially dealing with that. It reminded me a lot of the series Jericho in the sense that it's almost post-apocalyptic. There's, especially in season 1, because I haven't seen the other seasons yet. There's a lot of very expected themes that are that play out. You deal with water shortages, food shortages, rioting, looting, murdering, fighting, not getting along. But just like Jericho, it has this kind of I don't know what you would call it. Leave It to Beaver. It's too goody two shoes to a certain degree. I actually kind of found Jericho to be a little bit more gritty, even though there are things that happen in Under the Dome which are very much sneakier and underhanded. You know what? Honestly, they're very different, but very much the same. Very similar things happen in the shows because it is a post-apocalyptic type scenario, and we'll leave it at that. With Under the Dome, there's a sci-fi type element. Obviously, where did this dome come from? Is it the government who's created it? Is it from like religious background? Is it, say, from aliens or science? Is it something in the town? Is it something outside of the town? Where is it coming from? And that's one of the themes and stuff that they kind of go through during this first season, and eventually they find something that they believe is creating this dome. One of the interesting things about this, in order to essentially make it so that this town had certain resources but lacking others, they essentially start off the show with some of the police force and essentially almost the entire fire department leaving the town to go to the neighboring town for some festival type thing, celebration that's going on there, and they do this every year, so it's not new. But at the same time, there's this government officials and people from the town, higher up people from the town, respected individuals who are partaking in some nefarious activities, and to do so, they're actually importing a lot of propane. So this town has a surplus of propane. Luckily enough, hey, what do you know, runs generators and powers and stuff. So unlike, say, like a Jericho where they had no power, this place runs along, and everybody seems to have power and such like that. again, like, it's odd because I get it for the first couple of days. Nobody knows what's going on. Essentially, you just want to get people together and find out who, take account of who's in the town and who's not in the town and stuff like that. But this town seems to go on sort of like, at least for the first bit, like nothing's really happened. Yes, there is this thing, but they all figure, oh well, this is going to go away soon. And I'm like, admittedly, this is something that's trapped them inside, and it's an actual physical type thing. But unlike a Jericho where it's post-apocalyptic and you don't know. But I would still think that if there were smart people and leaders and people who knew things, they would start automatically deciding, you know what, we need to figure out how to ration food and fuel and water and how to provide these things and start giving people, jobs and such, just in case they have to do this in the long run. Because what happens when you don't do that is you get the looting, you get the people taking advantage, you get certain people hoarding and stealing and all that kind of stuff happening. It's like, honestly, people, if this ever happens to you anywhere, if you end up in like a post-apocalyptic situation and you are a community and you're closed off from, whatever, the rest of the world for whatever reason, start with that. Think of it like an episode of Survivor. You got to start with building your shelter, finding out what everybody can do, and then you got to collect your food, get your food so that you can provide for it. And yeah, so a lot of, especially about the first half of the first season here, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm just like, oh my god, like, honestly, people, if you just were smarter about these things, you wouldn't have run into these problems. Everybody would have been provided for. Yes, it is sort of like a communist type idea, but when you're in this situation and you don't know if A, you're gonna have any rain, therefore, yes, it is a farming community, so normally you'd have your farms, but if there's no water, what are you gonna do, right? So yeah, there's so many things, episodes that are revolving around, oh my god, we've got a shortage of this. Next episode, oh my god, we've got a shortage of this. Next episode, oh my god, this is happening, we don't have any way of dealing with it, how are we going to deal with it? All that kind of stuff is taking place in this show, and it always seems like anybody who could really quickly deal with these things is always on the other side of the dome, right? The fire department's on the other side of the dome. Oh, let's have a fire in the town. Oh no, what are we gonna do? So yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, oh my god, like seriously, people, you should think of these things right away. That being said, Under the Dome does have one thing where it's like, it doesn't splinter off, at least not in the first season. It doesn't really splinter off enough. There's sort of one group which is sort of led by the apparently only remaining person in the town who was on town council, who's a very strong personality, and then somebody who he's been fighting with his entire life, essentially, setting up shop on the other side. And it's like, wow, okay, great. So these are your two power plays here going on, and then eventually there's a third power play that comes about that just seems sort of like written in willy-nilly almost, and it's just like there are things that happen in this show where I'm like, this is something that should have been dealt with already. New characters shouldn't just be showing up in the show being like, well, I was in I took shelter in this person's house. I didn't know what was going on. And nobody checked all the houses? What? I don't know. It's just a lot of weird stuff. You got to take a lot of things with a grain of salt. But then you got this sci-fi element. You get the this dome. You get weird things going on. And then they start finding, elements that may be creating this dome. and that's kind of interesting. And honestly, despite the whitewashing, the very goody two-shoes nature of a lot of what's going on in this film, and the fact that nobody seems to think ahead, I'm actually looking forward to season 2. I like post-apocalyptic things, so even though things are very cliche, you know, the food shortages, water shortages, etc., 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 I like watching that play out no matter what. I don't know. Call me weird, call me a sadist or something. I love watching people struggle to figure these kind of things out and how they deal with them. But I have a feeling there should be less of that happening in subsequent seasons, simply because they've sort of worked out the main logistics of the town. So outside of, you know, like the sci-fi elements and dealing with that, or the internal struggles that are happening between, you know, the power struggles and the let's say unsavory past of certain characters, and dealing with that, and how, you know, everybody else will deal, you know, should they find out about it, etc., etc., should secrets come to light. That's where I think the seasons are going from there. So I do want to see where season 2 goes, because I'm liking the post-apocalyptic nature of it. I don't really care so much about the, you know, the drama, if you want to call it that, the drama between these characters and the way they're playing out. It's okay. It is what it is. But honestly, so much of this stuff could just be because it's such a Wild West type scenario where there are no real rules, that anybody can, well, be killed at any point in time, and nobody would ever be able to figure out who it was until eventually the dome goes down. And if they're there for years, it won't make a difference anyways. So it is really a Wild West scenario where mob rules, right? Whatever the mob decides, that's what's happening, whether it's right, wrong, true, false, it doesn't matter. And I think that's going to be a lot of play in, well, it was a good portion of the latter part of season 1. I think there's probably going to be a lot more of it in season 2. And as much as I'm more post-apocalyptic fan than I am a Western, Wild West type thing, I still, you know what, it's enjoyable to watch. So I'm looking forward to checking out season 2 and seeing where that goes. Will I continue to enjoy the show? Who knows? You'll have to keep checking back, and when I do shomi for season 2, you'll know. I'll let you know then. But at the moment, I'm okay with it. I think it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, I kind of wish there was more slicing like that. First, you know, like you see it when they previewed the show, when the dome comes down and slices the cow in half, and you see it. I wish there was more of that. I kind of like that part, but that's just the, I think that was just the what you might call it, premiere, the pilot episode, I guess. Yeah. So, should you watch it? Honestly, if you like Jericho, you'll probably really like Under the Dome. If you like power struggles, or even, you know, if you like post-apocalyptic things, Under the Dome definitely fits in there. Like I said, it's a little whitewashed, a little too clean, but at the same time, there is a lot of underhanded things going on in it, which help make it seem a little dirty. Not like sexual dirty, like not whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, yeah, so that's Under the Dome season 1. Again, like I said, I am looking forward to season 2, and yeah, we'll see if I continue liking it after that. So, thanks for watching. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.